Paratmanamekam Jagadbijamadyam Niriham Nirakaram Onkara Vidyam Yato Jayate Palyate Yena Vishvam Tamisham Bhaje Liyate Yatra Vishvam. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. My respected pranams to Swami Shantatmanaji Maharaj, and my pranams to all of you, Brahman in so many forms. This is the plain, naked truth. Today we may be far away from this, no matter how difficult it may appear to us today, but this is the plain, naked truth. Someday or the other, each one of us is going to come and end up in this position. It is only a matter of time before we reach there. A beautiful topic indeed. Sri Ramakrishna and Advaita. And just as Shantatmananji just now, he touched upon that famous incident of Mayavati, actually it has put an end to a big issue in the Ramakrishna Sangha. It is a landmark event, I would say, in the Ramakrishna Sangha. Otherwise, this doubt would have lingered throughout the history of the mission as to what was Sri Ramakrishna's essential core ideology. So, we cannot exaggerate the importance of that event, truly speaking. It is simply a landmark event in my observation. If you just look into Sri Ramakrishna's teaching, all the standpoints are there, and mostly you will find it is all dualistic and at the most qualified non-dualism. Shades of these, Sri Ramakrishna keeps on moving from these two standpoints most of the time. In the gospel you will find. So it is very easy for a superficial initial reader, a reader in the initial stages, to jump to the conclusion that Sri Ramakrishna is a Vishishta Advaitin, or at the most Advaitin. Because we, after all, we are all ignorant jivas. Our spiritual life, maybe it has just commenced, and our awareness is presently completely buried in an unquestioned sense of realism about dualism. You can't help it. And with that spectacle, anyone who reads Sri Ramakrishna's gospel is bound to, there is every probability of this mistake being committed, to conclude that Sri Ramakrishna means it is dualism or qualified non-dualism. So, this event, which Maharaj just now touched upon, it is a landmark event in the history of Ramakrishna Sangha, where this debate, or this so-called an issue about what is ultimately the philosophy of Ramakrishna Sangha, or what was Sri Ramakrishna's ultimate standpoint, that was put to rest for once and for all times by none other than this absolutely unlettered woman called Sri Sarada Devi. Now, what is her place in the Sangha, we all know very well. She was one of the most amazing personalities, never in any confusion. Swami Vivekananda would dilly-dally. In many situations, you will find Vivekananda would be in doldrum as to what to decide in difficult situations. And often he would take wrong decisions, being emotionally charged and motivated. But emotions are one thing, but facts are different. That clarity which we find in the statements of Holy Mother Sarada Devi is something remarkable. That kind of clarity we find only in the Upanishads. Amazing clarity. She has many a times saved our so-called Sangha going into wrong channels. So that incident, actually speaking, it is a very important incident which puts to rest as far as what is the ultimate philosophy of Sri Ramakrishna. Even if Swami Vivekananda had told that Ramakrishna's ultimate philosophy is Advaita, many of them would not have listened to it. They would have definitely disagreed, as it happened in Mayavati. The person who started worship in Mayavati was his own disciple. His own initiated disciple. He was the person who started the worship in Mayavati, where Swami Vivekananda categorically had mentioned in the prospectus of Advaita Ashrama. It's a beautiful document. The prospectus of Advaita Ashrama, one should read it. It is the constitution of Advaita Ashrama. I always say that. One of the most beautiful piece of writing, just like the country has got a constitution, Advaita Ashrama has a constitution which reflects the vision of this great Advaita teacher called Swami Vivekananda. And even if Vivekananda had told that Ramakrishna's real ideology is Advaita, many of his own followers, his own chelas would have dared to differ. But what Holy Mother Sri Sarada Devi has said, once she told, no one can go against her final verdict. That was the importance of so-called that statement made by Sarada Devi, that we are all, our core ideology is Advaita. Yes, Advaita is the most beautiful ideology. Now let us now simply try to touch upon some of the important ingredients of this wonderful vision. Now, first of all, I want to make one very clear. Somehow we have been, what should I say, tutored. It's a kind of a tutoring which goes on for years after years after years, when we keep on telling the people, Advaita is difficult, Advaita is difficult, Advaita is difficult. We then take it for granted, and we never want to even attempt it. Sri Krishna says Advaita is the simplest. Actually speaking, Advaita is the simplest. Everything outside of Advaita is complicated and compound. The moment you come to dualism, it's all imagination to a great extent. And there is no end to these imaginations. And as long as you don't inquire into what the ultimate reality is, we remain in the framework of imaginations. And what is the imagination? This, an unquestioned sense of realism and mutual separation, mutual distancing, this sense of realism in duality, about which Shankaracharya so beautifully says in his Bhashya. He says that we are all suffering. He is saying that we are all ailing. We are all ailing from a sickness. And what is the sickness? Shankaracharya says, what is the sickness is? This sickness of our unquestioned sense of realism about dualism. Now, what is dualism? Even to understand Advaita, first we have to understand our present state of awareness, where we are seeing this entire world in a certain way. Mind is just a spectacle. If you have one kind of a spectacle, you will be seeing things in one way. If you change the spectacle, the vision will change. First, we have to get the right kind of a spectacle, the right vision. That is what actually is the blessings coming from the Upanishads, the blessings coming from Bhagavad Gita, the blessings coming from Shankaracharya's immortal works, and the blessings coming from Vivekananda and Ramakrishna. What is that right vision? Now, if you just look into the present state of human awareness, you will find, we have taken it for granted. What is that? What we are perceiving through the senses. This is a world. Jagat. We have never even questioned, is it really existing? It's a most thrilling inquiry. It is not an intellectual inquiry, let me tell you. It goes beyond the human intellect. Vedanta Vichar is not intellectual gymnastics. It is a penetrating investigation into what actually is existing. And Vedanta shows us the way how to do it. And everybody has got the capability to do it, only we have never utilized it. We have been made to believe in the reality of this thing called Jagat, and taking this for granted, we are searching for a second entity called God, separated from this Jagat. We think that this is Jagat and there is another entity. We don't know where that entity is, whom we are referring to as God, a separated entity. So, as an individual, I am separated from this thing called world, and there is a third entity called God. Nobody knows where, and then it's all a free, it's a free reign for all kinds of imaginations. That's why, see, we are all having all kinds of ideas about God. Every person, individual, his mind or her mind is visualizing or imagining God in so many ways. This is world, that is God. In the temples, here and there, and all these ideas. Now it's a complete chain which springs from this kind of a framework of dualism, where I think that I am an individual and this is a world and there is a third entity called God. And this is going on. Shankaracharya says this is the state of disease. He gives a beautiful example. Rogartasyeva roga nivrittau swasthata yatha dukhatmakasya dvaita prapancha upashame swasthata advaita bhavahat prayojanam. A beautiful statement. He talks about advaita bhava. He doesn't talk about advaita anubhuti. He says, you see, we are all suffering from this unquestioned realism about dualism. And as long as you don't touch upon it, you don't inquire into it, this will continue. And we suffer. This plane of dualism, as long as you think that the world is existing separated from me, there is no end to human suffering. So he says the first thing that we need to do is Advaita Bhava. Develop this Advaita Drishti. Put on the right kind of a spectacle. Now, what did Krishna do in the Bhagavad Gita? Bhagavad Gita is described as Advaita Amrita Varshinim. It's a nectar of Advaita which is being showered by this great teacher, Sri Krishna. It's completely Advaitic. Yes, people have interpreted in so many ways, but essentially Bhagavad Gita is a beautiful, one of the magnanimous documents which teaches the human being to develop this right kind of a spectacle in and through which we begin to see things clearly with our open eyes. Advaita doesn't want us to wait for God to come. Some of the statements will be very stunning and very alarming for most of us when it says that we have never in our life seen anything but God and God. But we could never understand this point. So challenging to the human sensibility and understanding, is it not? Advaita, this great Upanishads say that we are always seeing God. How is that we are not understanding this point? Shankaracharya in his works, amazing. Our every experience is soaked in God, because there cannot be any experience without the presence of God. Again, let me repeat this point. There cannot be any anubhuti. See, this is an anubhuti here. You're all looking at me. I am uttering certain words. It's an experience, a visual experience, an auditory experience, an experience we all are having. And Upanishads tell us, this very experience is soaked and saturated with the presence of that entity called God. Only we need the right kind of an insight, an awakened insight to catch it. It is present right here, right now. So interesting. It will begin to challenge our present state of awareness, and it should be challenged. The earlier it is challenged, the better. First, let us come out of this notion that Advaita is difficult. No, Advaita is the simplest reality ever presented. 9th chapter, Gita. Krishna says, Idam tute guhyatamam pravakshyami anasuyave. I am going to tell you what? Guhyatamam, the most secret wisdom. And what? Jnanam vijnana sahitam yad gyatva mokshase ashubhat. I am going to tell you the theoretical knowledge of the Supreme Reality as well as the experiential understanding of the Supreme Reality. Experiential. Not just conceptual, experiential. I want the experiential understanding of God. Don't just talk about imaginary things. God here and there, God will come at a certain point of time. Swami Vivekananda refers to this kind of ideology as it is good for kindergarten children, not for grown-ups. As we grow in spiritual life, our vision should change. We should mature. Sri Ramakrishna is so beautiful to say, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead, don't stop. Don't just linger in the standpoint of Advaita. Go ahead, come to Vishishta Advaita. Go ahead, catch Advaita. You can do it. It will come. It is only the question of training the mind in seeing things differently. So, that Krishna says, Jnanam Vijnana Sahitam. Yad Gyatva Mokshasya Ashubhat. When you have this vision, it will put an end to all our sufferings and problems in life. Then, second statement is very important. Just now, what I was conveying to you, all of you, the easiness of this great ideology. He says, Rajavidya Rajaguhyam Pavitram Idam Uttamam Pratyakshavagaman Kartum Susukham Avyayam. What does it mean? He says that this is the king amongst the knowledge, the sovereign knowledge, the greatest knowledge, what I am going to present, and it is also the greatest secret. And this is what? He's saying it is Pratyakshavagaman. It is directly available to all of us in our experience, directly, without the mediacy of any so-called instruments of knowledge. Pratyakshavagaman. Kartum susukham. He says it is very easy to practice. Krishna's words. So what I want to say is that we need to sometimes, not remain in one certain framework alone. We need to challenge and we need to push ourselves to higher and higher viewpoints boldly. Advaita is a bold venture. It is the venture into understanding what the ultimate reality is. And every human being has got the capacity and the competency. Only thing which makes this whole venture difficult is only one point, which the Upanishads and all the great rishis have categorically stated it. What makes this whole venture difficult? It is only one point. Absence of vairagya, nothing else. For anyone who has got vairagya in a sufficient quantity or degree, this will be the easiest thing. Why would it not come? Shankaracharya says, it should come. It is the absence of vairagya. When we are completely deluded by infatuations for the things of the world, then this vision will not come. For a person who is gifted with the spirit of virag, for that person, this will be the simplest and the easiest thing to do. So beautiful. And that is the greatest thing. People are usually very scared when we talk about vairagya and tyaga. I always say tyaga is the most beautiful thing to happen in human life. Opposite of tyaga is the mother of endless evils. The earlier we understand this, the better. Opposite of tyaga is the source of endless sufferings in human life. You can go on and on. And we, whenever we suffer, we pray to a God who is separated from me, and I feel some kind of a relief, some solace I get, and we are just caught up in that framework. It is not solving our problem. The whole life goes in this way. We seek solace in a God who is separated from me, and we are expecting that my problems will come to an end. Tell me, after 30, 40 years of this kind of framing, has our problems really come to an end? It's a big question. It will go on like this. This problem has been discussed in the Upanishads. Whereas when we cultivate the right vision, it is all right here and right now. With a change of the vision, something wonderful. It is all here and now. Sri Ramakrishna's statement. Ikhane gyan, ukhane agyan. Beautifully. The idea that God is there, God is there, God is there, this is all avidya. God is where? It is here, right now, in our experience itself. Only we need to cultivate the right kind of insight to catch that reality which is throbbing in our every experience. Everything is soaked in God. Upanishads teaches us to cultivate that vision, that deeper insight, to detect it, going beyond the surface pictures and identify the throbbing reality, which is the very basis of our existence. So in this way, you see, this Advaita, now what is Advaita? Let me just, as I said, duality we have seen, the idea that I am existing, this world is separated from me, and there is a third entity called God. We don't know where it is. We are imagining about it. About Advaita, Sri Ramakrishna tells a beautiful story. Our topic is Ramakrishna and Advaita. Sri Ramakrishna's gospel has got Advaitic statements in different places, also dualistic statements, also statements pertaining to the Vishishta Advaita standpoints. But one should not be concluding that that alone is the reality. He also keeps on saying, go ahead, march ahead, don't stop till you reach the goal. Swami Vivekananda has that famous statement, arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached. What does it mean? It means precisely this. Presently, our framework may be the framework of dualism. Doesn't matter. Come on, march ahead. Wake up, stand up, go, and stop not till you reach the ultimate goal of this Advaitic vision where we begin to see God with our open eyes. Then our real life starts. I always say, Sri Ramakrishna's most important teaching, of course, this is my personal opinion, subjective opinion. Anybody can differ from it. Sri Ramakrishna's most important teaching, according to me, is that where he says in Bengali, Advaita Gyan, Achale Bendhe, Tarpore, Ja Ichha, Tai Koro. What does it mean in English? He says that tie the knowledge of Advaita to the corner of your cloth and then lead your life. What a beautiful thing it is. First develop the spectacle of non-dualism. God is not separated from you. It cannot be separated from you. Develop this conviction and learn to see that God in everybody. The implication of this vision is going to be something revolutionary in the human life. Something which brings about a tremendous revolution and a tremendous sense of freedom. Freedom from all kinds of captivity and psychological captivity, slavishness. Everything breaks away when you develop this true vision of seeing divinity in everything. So Ramakrishna says that tie the knowledge of Advaita to the corner of your cloth. Now this is just the echo of what Gaudapada Acharya says in his Karika, Mandukya Upanishad Karika. Wonderful. Gaudapada Acharya says, Tasmat Advaite yojayet smritim Advaitam samanuprapya jadavat lokam acharet. A beautiful statement comes in his, if I'm not wrong, it is in Vaithatya Prakranam of Mandukya Upanishad, where Gaudapada Acharya says, you see, Tasmat, therefore, it's a beautiful discussion, It's full of Advaita, Advaita, Advaita. Gaudapada Acharya, Shankaracharya, Sri Krishna, Upanishads. It's all nothing but the ultimate vision of reality which is non-dual. There is nothing existing separated from it. This is the declaration of the rishis for once and for all times. Yes, before reaching that, there may be some lower standpoints, that is perfectly fine. But we should not be getting stuck up there itself. We should try to grow in spiritual life and begin to see the truth with our open eyes. So there Gaudapada Acharya says, Tasmat Advaite yojayet smritim. Let your smriti, let your memory be fixed upon this non-dualism. Means let your mind be soaked and saturated with the vision of non-duality. Exactly what Sri Ramakrishna says, tie the knowledge of Advaita to the corner of your cloth. And then Gaudapada Acharya says, Advaitam samanuprapya. After having got this new spectacle, what a beautiful thing, no? Spectacle. I have one spectacle with one number, so I see things in one way. And I change the spectacle, I see things differently. What happened? It's all the play of spectacles. Similarly, the kind of psychological spectacle which we are used to, it will govern, it will decide the quality of your life. As long as we have been hypnotized to believe in the so-called the psychological spectacle of dualism, never questioning it, that is the biggest mistake. Dare to question it. Dare to question it. It's good. That is the line of growth. We have to grow in spiritual life. As long as we are continuing in the psychological framework, spectacle of dualism, we are stuck up somewhere. Change the spectacle with the help of Acharya and the Shastras. This spectacle comes from Shastras, Upanishads, and the Acharya, from the Guru. It won't come just like that. It won't come just by reading books. Definitely, this we have to admit. This is a gift coming from Guru and the Shastras. You can't help it. If you learn it properly from the Guru, from the right person, a person who lives that conviction, who breathes that conviction. Do not, let us not hypnotize ourselves to think that this is difficult. What did Vivekananda preach for the 9 long years? Tell me. Anything apart from the Atman idea? Anything? He didn't speak about anything else for the 9 long years from 1893 to 1902 till the end of his life. Hammering only one idea, the true nature of man, the true nature of woman, which is the Atman, the non-dual Atman. Everything outside of that is just pure imagination. According to the Upanishads, imaginations engendered by avidya and ignorance, nothing else. So anyhow, there, Gaudapada says, Tasmat Advaite yojayet smritim Advaitam samanuprapya jadavat lokam acharet. Then you lead your life with this Advaitic vision as if you don't know anything. What a beautiful thing it is. Internally, you are completely a changed person. Outside, you are just like anyone else. Eating, drinking, sleeping. Whenever you feel hungry, you eat some food. But internally, your vision is totally revolutionized. Jadavat lokamacharit. Exactly what Sri Ramakrishna says. You tie the knowledge of Advaita to the corner of your cloth and then you lead your life. What a beautiful teaching it is. Now, as I said before, I was just going to narrate that story which Sri Ramakrishna wanted to... He used this story to convey this idea of non-dualism. We all know that story of Ganesha, Lord Ganesha. In the Gospel, you will find the story coming. Once Lord Ganesha, he was playing with a cat. You know that. So, Lord Ganesha, the small baby Ganesha, playing with the cat. So initially it was all like play. Ganesha was teasing the cat, holding its tail, pulling it here and there, throwing it down, making it roll on the sand, etc., etc., etc. But what initially started in the mood of play, slowly it became serious. He started handling the cat in a rough manner, and in that whole play, the cat got injured many times. It even started bleeding. And finally, somehow the cat could succeed in freeing itself from the clutches of Ganesha, and it ran away. Ganesh, the small boy, playfully, he didn't understand the seriousness of what he was doing. He was doing just like any kid would play with toys, etc. Ganesha then returned home to Kailasha, where he entered the room and he found his mother Parvati lying there. Her cloth is torn, her body is bruised, she is bleeding in many parts of her body, and she is very sad and she is in pain. So Ganesha asks his mother, "Mother, what happened? Who did this to you? Who dared to do this to you? Please tell me that person's name." Parvati says, "My child, it was you who did it." So Ganesh was stunned, absolutely stunned. "When did I do this to you?" Then Parvati tells Ganesha, "You see, that cat whom you caused injuries, I reside in that cat also. I am that reality which resides in everything. When you hurt somebody, you are hurting your own self. And when you do good to somebody, you are doing good to your own self." In order to convey this idea of non-dualism, there are no two things existing in this creation. Where is the creation? If you just push it to the ultimate pedestal, where is creation? What we are saying is all Brahman. It's one reality. Brahman with forms, Brahman without forms. This itself, this is Saguna Brahman. What else is God? This is God. Come back to Swami Vivekananda's famous utterance. Bahurupe Sammukhe Tumar Chadiye Kothai Khujicho Ishwar. See, it's a very striking questioning. He's asking us this question. My dear children, just tell me, where are you looking for God, leaving this God who is standing in front of you in so many forms? Advaita. You are looking for God in temples, here and there. You are waiting for God to arrive. That will be the biggest delusion with which man can live. God will arrive. If a God has to arrive, that cannot be God at all. Upanishadic vision, you see, this is the ultimate picture of reality. Whatever we are seeing, it is nothing but God and God alone. Leaving aside this God in so many forms in front of us, which God are you waiting for? Ask this question to yourself. Are we really ready for this experience? Now, immediately we will jump. Oh, Swamiji, it's all very easy for you to talk about it. You're all sannyasis. We are householders. This is the very first contention which I always face. हम लोग तो गृहस्थ हैं, हम लोग कैसे करेंगे ये? आप तो सन्यासी हो, आप तो बोल सकते हो. This is another big hypnosis. Upanishad doesn't make any demarcation between householders and sannyasins. Upanishad is telling the plain, naked truth to the entire humanity. Isha vasam vasyam idam sarvam. Everything is one Isha here. Om iti etadaksharam idam sarvam. Kasminnu bhagavo vigyate sarvamidam vigyatam bhavati. It is all one reality. We are always experiencing only one reality. In delusion, in ignorance, we are thinking that something apart from that reality is existing. Now, this will continue as long as you don't investigate into it. So, in this way, we find Sri Ramakrishna's that beautiful story in the Gospel, Ganesha and cat story, to convey the idea that there is only one reality which is existing in all. When I hurt somebody, I am hurting my own self. And when I am doing something, if I am bringing cheer to somebody's face, I am bringing cheer to my own self. It is one reality everywhere. Everywhere it is I am who am smiling everywhere. Everywhere it is I who am weeping everywhere. There is nothing apart from the self here. This is the ultimate vision of the Upanishads. If we strive, if we push our inquiry in this direction, this will become a matter of reality. So Shankaracharya has that famous utterance, immortal utterance. Brahma Satyam, Jagat Mithya, Jivo Brahmaiva Napara, Etad Vedyam Sat Shastram iti Vedanta Dindima. Immortal utterance. There is only one reality. The idea that a second entity is existing separated from this Brahman is purely owing to avidya and ignorance. This is what is Sat Shastram. This is the real teaching of the scriptures. Iti Vedanta Dindimaha. This is the ultimate proclamation of all the Upanishads and all the Rishis. There is no two things existing. Ghatakudyatikam sarvam mrittika matramevatu tadvad brahma jagat sarvam iti Vedanta Dindimaha. Just like Ghatakudyatikam sarvam mrittika matramevatu. Just like all the different so-called items made out of clay. There's a clay, and out of the clay we make pots, plates, jars, etc., etc. The different instruments, different items which we make out of the clay. Now, an ignorant person will say that clay is there and there is something separated from the clay called pot. Now tell me, is the pot a second separated entity existing apart from clay? If you just inquire, if you just investigate into the pot, you will find that pot doesn't even exist. What is existing? Clay alone is existing. Shankaracharya says if you investigate into a human being, every human being who's sitting here, we need investigation. We need a penetrating insight. If you look into the human being vanishes and God emerges. If you look into this thing called world, you're penetrating investigation into it, the world vanishes, God emerges. As long as we don't investigate, as long as we don't really probe into it, this delusion continues. We continue with the old vision saying that this is Jiva and this is Jagat. This is man, this is woman, etc., etc., etc. You investigate into it, where is the man, where is the woman? God emerges. It is throbbingly present right now, right here. Ramakrishna taught this Vedanta, which is not different from Shankaracharya's Vedanta. Please make this point very clear. There is nothing, I always tell this, There's another narrative which has been there in the air. There's nothing like Shankara Vedanta, Vivekananda's Vedanta, Sri Ramakrishna's Vedanta. Vedanta cannot be qualified by any terms. It is not limited to any teacher. Vedanta is Vedanta. Once and for all times, the ultimate picture of reality has been given to the humanity by the Upanishads. And all these great teachers, I always say these are the four big pillars in our parampara, starting from the rishis of the Upanishads, coming down to Sri Krishna. Sri Krishna was one of the greatest propounder of this vision of non-dualism. Then comes Shankaracharya, amazing picture of non-dualism. And then comes Ramakrishna and Vivekananda. There's nothing like Shankaracharya's Vedanta or Shankaracharya's Advaita or Ramakrishna's Advaita. Advaita is Advaita. It is a plain, naked truth. You cannot qualify it by adding a name before it. And all these great teachers, they were all great demonstrators of this great reality. Krishna was the demonstrator of what he was teaching. Shankaracharya was the great demonstrator of what he was preaching. Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda is another most modern demonstration of what Upanishad stands for. So we should actually be very careful when we say that this Vedanta is different from that Vedanta. It is only owing to because we have not probed into the Shastras deeply. If you really probe into the Shastras very deeply, you will understand there may be some differences in emphasis. One teacher emphasizes one point, the other teacher emphasizes some other point. But essentially speaking, no one is speaking anything different. Essentially, the word essentially is important. Essentially speaking, no one is speaking anything different. It is one universal vision of the Upanishads which is being demonstrated by these great teachers from time to time. Sri Ramakrishna was the blazing demonstration of the wisdom of the Upanishads. Now, as I told before, if we have to cultivate this vision of Advaita, as I told, the only condition means literally only condition is the spirit of Vairagya and Tyaga, nothing else. Again, look into Sri Ramakrishna's life. What should I speak? About whom Holy Mother Sri Sarada Devi said, you see, somebody came and spoke to Ma saying that, see, Sri Ramakrishna has come to show the samanvaya of everything, the harmony of this, harmony of that. Holy Mother listened to all those things and then she said, see, Baba, I don't know about all this harmony and all these things. But one thing I can say, has the world seen this kind of renunciation ever in the history? And this is very, very true. What does Sri Ramakrishna stand for apart from Tyaga? Do we find even the slightest infatuation, slightest one grain of attraction for this mithya Jagat? Jagat is mithya. Is there any doubt about it? The idea that a second entity apart from Brahman is existing is mithya. It cannot be. If Jagat were really existing in a real sense, then would Sri Ramakrishna depict this kind of renunciation? Why? Why renunciation? If Jagat is real, then nobody would practice renunciation. Upanishads, on the top of its voice, declares, Tyagena eke amrutatva manushu. It is only by Tyaga that this immortal vision of non-dualism is acquired. And what do we find? Now let me tell you one thing. All the teachers, they were all great Tyagis. Shankaracharya was a great Tyagi. Sri Krishna's life is full of Tyaga. But in Sri Ramakrishna's life, because it is of a very recent time, we know every small details of his life. What a blazing, literally blazing. It's a conflagration of the spirit of renunciation. What blazing renunciation. He just can't stand anything worldly. Because Brahman alone is true, God alone is true, God alone is real, everything else is unreal or illusory. You turn the pages of Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Every page is filled with every other page. Every alternative page you will find that this idea coming. God alone is real, world is illusory. God alone is real, world is illusory. God alone is real, world is illusory. Therefore, give up lust and greed. Give up lust and greed. Give up lust and greed. Kama and Kanchana, Kama and Kanchana. As long as this, and Kama and Kanchana exists only in duality. Actually speaking, is very interesting. Complete Tyaga is only possible in the Advaitic vision. In dualism, complete Tyaga is not possible. I leave it at here. I don't want to discuss about it because there is not much time. But this is one thing which we have to think about it. Real Tyaga happens only in non-dualistic vision, where you understand that there is nothing, there is no second entity existing apart from God. Then the real renunciation has taken place. Otherwise, if a world is existing in a real sense, separated from Brahman, then always this question mark will be there. You won't be able to fully turn away from that real entity called world. So, ultimately, finally, one more thing, let me just talk about it. Sri Ramakrishna's life, which is written in so many volumes, beautiful life, the most inspiring life in recent times. Nobody can read this life without being convinced that God alone is existing. When we turn the pages of Sri Ramakrishna's life, every page conveys you directly or indirectly this one idea of God alone is real, rest everything is illusory. So blazingly. And Sri Ramakrishna's essential teaching is what? Shivagyane Shivabhave. Learning, more than learning, training. Train. We have to train ourselves in this vision. It's a training of the mind. Removing that wrong spectacle and bringing in the right spectacle, which Upanishads talk about. Training the mind to see divinity in everybody. Do not underestimate anybody. Not even a worm. That's why that is a beautiful Hindu culture, you know. What is this beautiful Hindu Vaidika culture? We bow down to everything, is it not? We see a mountain, we bow down. We see Ganga, we bow down. We see a tree, we bow down. Westerners say that, oh, this is all superstitious. What do they know about the inner reality? It is one Brahman which is throbbing in so many forms. That is the great culture and civilization of this land, this Punya Bhumi, which is based upon this Advaitic vision, to awaken which Sri Ramakrishna had come. To once again revive this great Advaitic vision, it should come into our lives, and this is the best thing to happen to you as well as me, because this alone puts an end to all our sufferings right here, right now. Otherwise, in the other frameworks, it is all just like some cosmetic treatment which is being given to us. It is just a cosmetic treatment. You get temporary solace, again the problem continues. There is no end to it. As long as we don't change our vision, the spectacle, this evil of misery and suffering is bound to continue. Tasmat Advaite yojayet smritim. Therefore, keep your mind fixed on Advaita, as Sri Ramakrishna said. Therefore, tie the knowledge of Advaita to the corner of your cloth and then lead your life. Thank you so much.